Hey everybody, I'm Casey Ferran, and you're listening to Sworn to Serve, the official Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office podcast. And today we have a very powerful episode that takes us behind the scenes of one of the most harrowing nights in New Orleans history recently. And we're going to be joined by Detective Charles Morgan, who was on Bourbon Street when the attack happened. He was rushing in to help those in need, and we'll also hear from some members of the OPSO intake and processing team later in the show. They were at our mobile booking unit just blocks away, listening to the chaos as things unfolded that night. But first, Sheriff, let's welcome Detective Charles Morgan, one of our agency heroes.
Yes, absolutely. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell us a little bit, just first off, what is the day-to-day like in your job here at OPSO on a general day?
So I'm actually assigned to one of the task forces with the Major Crimes Task Force. So my day-to-day takes me away from OPSO here on campus, but we are a metro-wide task force. So we represent OPSO, myself, my partner, Detective Randall Kuhn. We represent OPSO in all of the surrounding parishes.
Yeah. And that night you were on Bourbon Street or near the area. Take us a little bit back to that night of what you were doing and what you were doing in the moments before everything really happened.
So I was actually working the French Quarter Patrol Detail. I had just gotten off at 3 a.m. and gotten back to my unit, which was parked at Bienville and Royal. I'd gotten inside my unit, and I hadn't taken my earpiece out yet for my radio. As I was going to take it out, I could hear the chaos unfolding at Canal and Bourbon. Couldn't exactly understand at the moment what was going on, just knew something was going on. So at that point, I put my unit in drive and made a right onto Bienville, headed towards Bourbon. At the moment I turned, I see a white flash on Bourbon Street, which later turned out to be the vehicle, but he was going so fast, I couldn't tell exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. So I jumped in behind and gave chase.
Oh. And when I finally, was apprised of what went on and got a chance also to hear from Detective Morgan about his participation in that and how close he was to that, I got to tell you, my heart was beating really, really fast. We just felt some kind of way anyways once we woke up and found out the news once we were woken up to find out the news about what happened. But to know that members of our team were that close was something.
When did you realize something was terribly wrong?
Well, usually members of law enforcement that work in that area are usually quite poised on the radio, no matter what happens. So when you hear a fellow member of law enforcement screaming on the radio, you know at that moment something is terribly wrong. Mm-hmm. That's not a normal occurrence.
So what was going through your mind as you finally got to the scene and saw what happened?
Well, we're trained to go direct to threat. So everything that's going on around, all we see is the threat. Our training takes us direct to threat to stop the violence. Mm-hmm. And that's all you see. We're trained to bypass injured, people calling for help. As long as there's a threat, we go direct to threat. And that's where we went. At that point, the assailant was engaged with the New Orleans Police Department, the 3 officers that took him down, and then I jumped in right after. Once we pulled him from the vehicle, checked him, make sure he wasn't wearing a suicide vest, because noticed the flag on the back of his truck, immediately recognizing what that was, and to make sure that there was no other threats at that moment, at that scene. And then everything after that was take care of all of those who were injured.
Yeah.
And it was just go from person to person, make sure you put hands on everyone that's injured. At that point, I can say that was probably the proudest moment I've ever been to be in law enforcement in the city. No one was there as a supervisor to tell anybody what to do. Everybody just did it simultaneously, without a word spoken. everybody knew what to do. And that was a monumental moment.
Yeah.
No matter which department, and there were several departments
Several
down there.
departments, state police, the New Police Department, myself, wildlife and fisheries, the security from the hotel across the street, didn't matter. Security from the nightclubs. I mean, it was, if somebody was injured, people were putting hands on them immediately. And New Orleans EMS, I don't know where they came from. They were there fast. I mean, fast. It was like they had 20 ambulances staged on Canal Street. They were just, next thing I know, they're there. And that was it.
And you know, as officers, you're trained to perform in these high stress positions, these situations.
Yes.
And like you said, you went straight to that threat and then had to tend to the chaos of the victims. What was that like, seeing so many people who were impacted that night?
Unfortunately, in this line of work, most normal people go through less than a dozen traumatic incidents in their lifetime. Law enforcement, last numbers I saw were somewhere between 800 and 900 in a career. So
Wow.
to say it doesn't affect us is a complete lie. It affects all of us. It's in those moments that you fall back on your training or your faith or whatever it is it's got to get you through it. And in my case, it was just training. I just went on just automatic, just on automatic. That was all it was.
I have to say, when I spoke to the Detective Morgan, when I saw him so calm after all you had been through, I have to say my heart was just, I was inside, like a storm going on inside after what happened. Felt helpless, felt like I needed to do something, just something for our city. Who does that to the city of New Orleans? Who does that to these people who are, some of the best people you ever meet in your life? The culture is so great. And, but he was so calm after being under fire, just handled business, and then went through and gave a briefing to leadership who had come to the law enforcement leadership who had come to the scene. I think you were the first one to brief them as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. Being part of the Major Crimes Task Force, we have the luxury of dealing with task forces all over the city. One of them being the Homeland Security Investigations Violent Gang Task Force that we are a part of. After everything was cleared at about 4 that morning, I got on my phone on a group text and just basically said, terrorist attack on Bourbon Street. Is anybody awake? Being that it's New Year's Day, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. One of our intelligence analysts immediately responded. She's like, what do you need? We started running the vehicle, trying to figure out what's going on. Because I know from my training, and everybody in this room knows from their training, they don't always act alone. There could have been a secondary attack, so we had to make sure that we could get as much information to the people that needed it as fast as we could. So from there on, it went running one of the truck who the owner is, getting a unit from Houston to the house of the person that owns that vehicle, just running every piece of information we can till we can identify this person and figure out what exactly is going on. And so for the next 6 or 8 hours, that's all I did on scene, was just run intel.
And this was after your shift had ended. You were supposed to be home in bed, and you're just barreling through. I think in those moments, it's hard to not let emotions take over, but you said your training really just kicked in.
Yes, we have
Is there
a job to do.
anything that your training did not prepare you for?
Actually, no. No, I've had the luxury of a lot of training in my career. I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years. Yeah. I've been through extensive training. A lot of that on how to unpack trauma. So it's, like I said, it's automatic. It says you find your outlet, but there's a time and a place. Right then we had a job to do. We're going to do it.
I know, Sheriff, we often talk about on this podcast the trauma that those in our custody go through, but this trauma is real for the deputies and our staff as well. Absolutely.
And once, when I was woken up about this, like, who was down there? Who was on Royal Street? Who was booking bus? Is everybody safe? Sort of reaching out to our deputy chiefs to find out. My heart was just beating so fast. Got a report from Chief Goodley about what was going on with Deputy Morgan. Got a report from Chief Mallett about what was going on with Deputies Grant, Fillmore, Moore, and Green. So, and then, wanted them to be able to go to sleep and all that and get the rest that they need. But I needed to know that they were all right as well. And when I first got here in 2022, we did not have a police psychologist. We did not have the resources to send people to make sure they're all right. Because I found out this about working in a jail and in corrections, deputies serve as well. They serve time as well in the jail. And on average, live 10 to 15 years less than somebody who does not work. So they serve as well. So the more I learn about what our team goes through, the more I can do to support them. But what I knew is that, and I talked to each one of them, and I did, and I said, this is just because I care about you. I want you to get checked out. I want to make sure you're all right. They all took it the right way. Nobody saw it as a punishment, because that's not what it is. It's about love. It's about support and love. And they were all fine, because they were all stoic about it. And nobody was panicked. Everybody was doing well. I'm so proud of them. Yeah. So proud.
Is there a moment from that night that's really just kind of replaying in your mind?
Mostly of what could have happened.
Yeah.
It's the scenarios of had he been able to set off the explosives.
My God.
And the only real scenarios that run through my mind is how we would have reacted if those explosives had gone off first. Mm-hmm. And all of that. That's really the only thing that's really taken me back from it. And I still work out there. I was out there last night.
Yeah.
I'm still out there 3 days a week.
So it's not affecting your job, your day-to-day. It still goes on.
Oh, it still goes on.
Yeah.
We were out there for Super Bowl, representing the Sheriff's Department. We will continue to do that as long as we're allowed to.
I saw the crowds out there for Super Bowl, and it was packed. And you think, did this in a way prepare us and give us, the wake-up call we needed to make sure we were prepared in the way that we needed to be?
Unfortunately, yes. Security is an umbrella that is, when it's not raining, is a burden on everyone.
Yeah.
Until it's raining, that's when security becomes the umbrella everyone needs. That's with law enforcement, with anything. We're not prepared until something happens. And that's unfortunate, but that's the way this business runs.
How long have you been with OPSO?
25 years.
25 years with OPSO. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Amen. I love it. And you do have to learn lessons from incidents as they go on, but you think about, hindsight is 20/20, but when you think about what the biggest threat was on Bourbon Street, it was a shooting and people running and being run over. That was the biggest, and putting up barricades to that. During Super Bowl, there were some times where it got congested and people could not move because there were more barricades. And that was terrifying to those folks. I had people reach out to me about it. We had deputies respond to different incidents that were working Royal Street as well. So there are different threats, and you're trying to find one fix for all of those threats. It's impossible, but you do learn lessons from it and factor that in.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, even with it being the week after Super Bowl, being out there last night, it was a decent crowd. But with the barricades that are in place, with the security that's in place, it was choke points.
Yes.
That's a problem. But you have to weigh it, and I'm glad I'm not in that position.
Yeah.
I'll gladly stay Detective Morgan on that one and stay out of the planning part of it.
Yeah. Is there anything you want the viewers and listeners to understand just about generally what it's like to be in those moments and making those life and death decisions?
Not necessarily life and death decisions, but that we're out there and we're out there for them. That is the reason we're out there doing it. Not just for our families and protecting our families and taking care of our families, but theirs also. And that is our number one mission all the time.
Yeah. And with you being here 25 years, what's kept you here? And what would you say to other people who might be considering a career in law enforcement right now?
Oh, I love it. It's just family. Everybody in this room. I've known a lot of people in this room a very long time, longer than these pretty ladies would ever like to to say.
Admit, right?
Yeah, they've been here longer than they look. So, definitely.
Yeah.
But no, it's family. This place has been family since I was 19 years old. I'm 44 years old now. And that's it. I mean, it's family. It always has been.
That's awesome.
Love it. Yeah. And wanting to support that, 100%. We love this city. We want it to be the safest city in the country. We're on our way to doing our part in that as well, but very proud of the work of the men and women of this department every day.
Yeah. Detective Morgan, thank you so much for just joining us and sharing and reflecting on that night with us. I think it's been a learning experience for all of us, and we thank you for your heroism and being there on the first responders that night. We're going to take a brief break. We're going to bring in our OPSO intake and processing team, who were also there that night, to get a little bit of insight into what they remember and recall from January 1 of 2025. We'll be right back.
And we have just learned that more than a dozen missing children in the New Orleans area have been reunited with their families.
Inside the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Department, nonprofits and law enforcement personnel are working around the clock ahead of the Super Bowl to help missing children in order to prevent human trafficking. And their plans inside here are working. According to the nonprofit called In Our Backyard, 12 out of 36 missing children in the New Orleans area have been found safe. Majority of the survivors are from New Orleans, but one as young as 13 years old from New York. Officials say 1 out of 6 missing kids are at risk for human trafficking.
Some of the things that break my heart into pieces is hearing someone groom a child through a communication saying, I'm going to teach you all about the Super Bowl.
Police say human trafficking is a major concern with the Super Bowl in town. Statistics show major sporting events attract traffickers because of large crowds. The 13 children rescued will either be reconnected with family or connected with recovery resources.
The biggest need for them definitely is going to be mental health. Most times they will try to deny it at first. Of course, we'll try to get them to gain our trust by offering them support, talking to them, not using any form of law enforcement language.
If you or anyone you know is in need of help, you are asked to call the national hotline. That number for you is 888-3737-888. Reporting in New Orleans, Anam Siddiqui, WDSU News.
So now we're joined by 3 members of our intake and processing team who are out working our mobile booking unit. And y'all were just blocks away from where everything was really just happening on the ground. Can you tell us, just first, thank you for being here and being open to come and share some time with us. But first, introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, and what do you do here at OPSO?
I'm Deputy Fillmore. I'm the Assistant Record Room Supervisor in IPC.
Hi, I'm Demetra Moore. I'm a property IPC.
Hi, I'm Deputy Demetra Green, and I work in IPC Records.
Did we say Intake Processing Center?
I think I
is
said
the,
at one point.
that's the entry and the exit for
Yeah, so explain to us what
establishment.
that is.
Yeah.
What is intake and processing?
We're the heart and soul of the jail.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
That's where everyone comes in, process, and release from jail.
So at some point, they all kind of interact with your staff.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
We process them in and we release them out of custody.
And so that night you were stationed at the booking bus, which is like our mobile command unit. Talk a little bit about what that job entails and what was the atmosphere like that night. I mean, it was supposed to be a night of celebration. I would assume you guys were just kind of enjoying yourselves. And
Well, before all the chaos started, we were having a good time just watching all the New Year's Eve revelers party up and down the street, having fun, having a good time. We were actually out there doing transport for state troopers, probation and parole, wildlife and fishery, A district, just transporting the people that they were arresting and bringing them down here to IPC for processing before all the chaos started.
Which is critical for them being able to get right back on the streets, right?
Correct. We were
Take
that was to
custody.
take not to take them out of the French quarters into the traffic. We were out there to do that for them.
It also allows us to start the process quicker, to get them processed and moving wherever they're going to be going. If they're staying with us or moving, getting bonded out, whatnot, gives us a little jump on that too. So it's really, especially if we're anticipating more arrests, it helps us to get a quicker start on things as well.
Correct.
Do y'all recall how many arrests y'all might have had that night and were in transporting people? Pass the mic.
I think it was a total of maybe 3 or 4 at that time.
You had folks sitting there with you.
Me and Deputy Grant had just returned to intake to bring over the few people we just took in. We had just got here, and the officer from one of the troopers came, and he said, "Did you hear the radio?" But we had just channeled over for the jail to let us in. So we had to channel back over to hear the radio, and it was just complete chaos. The radio just unfolding. Nobody can hold a composure. It was like the very demure things we normally hear on the radio was not there because it was just chaos over the radio. You were just hearing it unfold, and the only thing going through my mind was, we got to come up out of here because we got to go back and get our workers. We got to go back to the floor. Like, we got to go back out there. We got to know what's going on, because at the time when I called, I guess everybody trying to communicate and answer the phones, and no phones was working. So we couldn't get through. So we don't know what's going on. We have to go back. And when we finally made it around to get back, that photo that was posted on the front of the newspaper with all the lights and cars and flashing, we saw that, and I just couldn't believe what we was looking at. We couldn't believe what we was going back to. Like, it was unbelievable.
And Deputy Moore and I was still out there. We had actually just taken the last person into custody that was brought to us and put him on the van. As I was getting on the van, I was talking to the state trooper. I was getting on the van to move it out of the way to let a garbage truck pass when the state trooper yelled for me to move. And I could hear on the radio them call an officer down. Must have been a police officer that was shot. He yelled for me to move, and as I'm moving, they all jumping in their vehicles to bypass me to get out of the way. And she and I could hear the same thing. Everything get chaotic over the radio. And we were trying to figure out what happened just that fast. And we were listening to, as Deputy Green said, everything unfolding over the radio. But at the time, we didn't know exactly what had happened. We just thought it was an officer down that had got shot or maybe ran over at that time.
When did it become clear what actually happened, and how did y'all start responding?
A few minutes later, still listening to everything on the radio, I hear the officer saying it started off with 10 to 12 people had been hit by a vehicle. I assumed it was a drunk driver at first that had maybe hit the people. And as I'm standing there talking with the state trooper, he and I are still listening to it. That 10 to 12 went to 12 to 15. Then that 12 to 15 went to 20 people. And the more I'm listening to it, and he and I are talking about it, I told him, I said, that wasn't a drunk driver. I said, that sounded like a planned attack. I said, that's not a drunk driver that did that. And the more you listen to it, it's just, as Detective Morgan said, everything was happening so fast. And I told him, I said, that's not a drunk driver. That was a planned attack. Someone did this on purpose.
And just what were you kind of processing when you hear officer down, number one, and then all these people hurt? What was just going through y'all's minds and your hearts?
Honestly, when I heard the officer yelling on the radio, as Detective Morgan said, and I could hear this over and over as I listened to the radio, he's yelling on the radio. When he starts saying, I have about 10 casualties, the first thing came to my mind, I said, it sounds like a terrorist attack. He went to telling them, clear the streets, shut Bourbon Street down, anything that's open, restaurant, bars, close it down, clear Bourbon Street. He went to yelling on the radio. I remember that Detective Morgan just said he don't know how EMS got there so fast. The officer on the radio said, I need every EMS agency down here now. That's how they got there so fast. He said, I need every agency down here, federal, state, city. He was calling for all these people over the radio. That's how I knew it was something serious.
And what's that like, kind of like being so close and you're hearing it all unfold, but you are in a position where you can't really physically intervene because you were so, I guess not.
It was scary because you really didn't know what was going on. You didn't know if something was coming towards you at that time, so it was kind of mind-boggling.
How did y'all were you just getting ready just in case because you still have people in custody
you
to
have
deal
to.
with.
You have
but
to,
if somebody
and then you're watching the people that's coming up the street towards you. So as it's just her and I at the time, because we were waiting for Deputy Green and Deputy Grant to come back. So we standing there, we watching everybody that's passing us, because you don't know what's going to happen next, not knowing what's actually going on at the time. So now we watching everybody that's passing us, because you don't know what's going to happen next.
And Deputy Green, you kind of touched on this a bit, the fact that you were kind of pulled away at that point and didn't know if they were okay, and you're hearing all that, you're wanting to get back to them.
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah, what was that like? Because these are your friends, these are your colleagues, these are your sisters.
Family.
Right.
Yeah. This is my family. So basically, it was mind-boggling. We got to come out of lockup. I need to know what's going on because nobody's not answering the phone. We couldn't get no phone calls through at the moment. So we got to come from here to there. I need to physically put my eyes on them. And once that happened, I was okay. Mm-hmm. I was still kind of okay, but then it wasn't okay because you still hear the radio unfold and you still hear things going on. You can't go help your other fellow law enforcement because we're in a predicament where we still have to maintain our position where we're at, but we can't go help other people who kind of need the help too. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like heartbreaking a little because we couldn't do that. But for the most part, we just had to make sure we were okay.
Yeah. And then you also had the job to do of processing the arrest, making sure you got those people here to the jail. How did you stay focused through all of this?
Training. It comes with the training.
Yeah.
It comes with the training. People tell you train. Sometimes you don't know when you're going to use it, when it's going to have to happen. But when you need it, it kicks in.
Amen to that. And I know as I found out y'all were out, who was out there that day? I know y'all are trying to get some sleep, but I'm texting. I got to talk to you at some point today. I need to just hear your voice. Every single one of them was strong. Every one of them was strong. I said it before, I'm extremely proud, but just appreciative too of the professionalism, ability to handle, stay on your post. Everybody can't be the quarterback. Sometimes you got to be the person out doing this or doing that. So you stay there, handle your post, because we got people in custody who have done things as well that we need to deal with, but just extremely proud of the professionalism, handling your business, but also supporting your fellow law enforcement out there.
Did that change your view in any way of your role in public safety and how you were able to be on the ground and respond in a time of the city's time of need?
No. It didn't change my business.
Yeah.
No, because 2 days later, we went right back out there. We didn't go New Year's night like we were supposed to because they moved the Sugar Bowl.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That Thursday, we went right back out there. We were at it again, back in the same spot, more attentive to everybody that passed us, the cars that was passing, just paying more attention to everything.
Vigilant. I know I felt like a need to do something. You know, like I don't actually do the work, but I had a need to see y'all. And then I just needed to walk up and down Bourbon Street. I needed to walk in the French quarters. This is our city. And this man did something terrible to our city. I just felt the need to be out there supporting law enforcement that night. Checking on law enforcement to make sure everybody's okay. And all first responders. It was just the need to do something. Did y'all feel that as well in your hearts that night? Or the next night?
Yeah, it was good to be back out there to show that we weren't afraid to be out there. Yeah. That, you know, it's still our city. We gonna still continue to do our job and do the work that we're called to do.
Amen to that. It's our city. We keep it safe. Thank you for that.
And then as just generally as I'm assuming mothers and, you know, aunts, I mean, as someone from the city, and how did it impact you as a New Orleanian, just in general, just to know that someone violated our city in that way?
It was strange because you've seen terrorist attacks happen everywhere else, but you would never think it would happen here, that it hit home. It actually hit home. Yeah. And to know that we were actually a few blocks away from where it happened, and after thinking about those bombs that were found, if those bombs had went off, I don't know, it was just how we would have felt it, because I don't know the impact it would have had hearing the news saying that the bombs that they found in the house he was living in Airbnb, how it would have taken out that whole block. Just thinking we would have felt the impact if those bombs would have went off in the French Quarter. Yeah. We definitely would have felt that. So I was just grateful that they didn't go off, because we definitely would have felt that.
Yeah, and obviously it's a bit of an emotional experience to kind of think back on all of it.
Yeah, I didn't think about it till a few days later. Yeah, we definitely would have felt that. It would definitely had a big impact on us. So yeah, we were definitely lucky with that.
Yeah. Do you think you know, Sheriff shared a little bit about how she called you all to make sure if you need some support, you get it? Do you realize sometimes like how we, I guess in a way, neglect to take care of ourselves in those moments after the fact?
We do.
Yeah. Have you taken care of yourselves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was crazy because when I woke up, I had missed calls, missed text messages from family, from friends. The sheriff had text. I'm reading a text message, and I was like, who is this texting me? And it wasn't till I got to the bottom of the message, I realized it was from the sheriff. I was like, I had so many missed calls and text messages. The only person knew that I was okay was my middle brother, and that was because he worked at night. So I had already called him and told him something had happened, and that I was okay, and I was heading home. So he was the only one of my family members knew that I was fine. Everybody else was calling me because they knew I was working down there, but they didn't know that I had made it home safely.
Yeah. Deputy Green, you want to share something? You said you'll be honest. You didn't know that was Sheriff texting you.
We didn't.
You were like, who is this?
We did not.
You were not going to answer.
Nobody knew. I was like, I'm trying to read text messages with one eye open, didn't have no glasses on or nothing. So
you're like, how she got my number?
I didn't. Yeah. I really did not know.
I wanted to come to their houses. I'm not lying. I wanted to call and come to their house, but I said, I know they could be sleeping. We got to get that sleep in. Yeah. We don't know what's going to happen after this. But I just needed to know you're all right. I just told y'all, I just needed to hear your voices and know you're all right and check on you.
What do y'all want people to be left with about, you know, OPSO in general? Just how much we are a part of this community and how much the work that you all do is meaningful, especially in situations like this.
I mean, you know, we get a bad rep. This agency get a very bad rep. And, you know, just know that everything you hear about us is not true. You know, we work hard. And, just know that we here. You know, we doing the best that we can. Everybody, you know, we here. We do the best that we can. You know, a lot of us are hard workers, and we take our job to heart, and we good at it, and we do the best that we possibly can.
Yeah. And you know, one thing I always think is so empowering. I mean, you've got your woman leader here in the sheriff, but 70% of the staff that work here is women.
Mm-hmm.
We are a woman-led agency with a huge, workforce that's women, and your people from the city, your mothers, your grandmothers, your aunts. You are the carers and the nurturers of this city, and that carries over to the work that you do here at OPSO. You guys said y'all the heartbeat of the jail, and that's seen in the impact and the work that you're doing. So thank y'all for that.
We work hard, and we're good at our job.
She wants y'all to know.
we're good at our job, and we work hard at it.
Yeah. And that's why we wanted to make sure you guys were acknowledged for that.
And we going back out next week.
Yeah.
Do the same thing all over again.
That's right.
Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras.
That's right. We'll be out booking bus, patrolling. I don't think people know also all that the men and women of this department do for this city. The jail, we patrol. We're bringing in people from Mardi Gras. We got the booking bus down there. We secure elections, the courts, and then community events all day long.
Yup.
Victim services, all the things. Oh yeah, and Super Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Super Bowl, Jazz Fest, yeah,
Everything. Essence Fest, everything.
Essence Fest, everything. You have to let them know we actually on the ground running boots like every other agency. Yeah, we man the jail. We do man the jail, but we're in the streets just like every other agency, trying to protect and serve the people.
You know what also is very interesting to me too about the staff is the people who are in custody, they may see y'all again when they leave here in the city. And the way you treat them in this jail will certainly impact how they treat you when they see you.
My motto is this: treat people how you want to be treated, because you never know when that uniform change and it be you on the other side. So you give everybody the same respect that you want for yourself. That's it. As long as you respect them, they're going to respect you.
Yeah.
amen to that.
Thank y'all so much for sharing and spending some time with us.
Grateful.
Do y'all have any closing thoughts?
Thank y'all for having us.
Any closing thoughts?
Well, you've been quiet. Is there something you want to say here? Anything you want to get off?
It's okay. Well, with that, I'll say this. You know, the events of January 1st really remind us of the sacrifices and the dedication of these women and everyone who are within this department and those who work in other agencies to protect and serve this community. And if someone, needs support from OPSO, we are here for y'all. We are here. We're from this community. We're a part of this community, and we want to make sure that this community thrives. So we thank y'all so much for listening, and we, again, thank our guests for all their dedication to this city and this agency.